Good Wednesday morning, and thanks for checking out your latest Winter Weather Wednesday outlook. Here, Michael Clark with BAMWX. We're going to talk about the rapidly expanding drought and possibly rain coming next week, right? But first, some really warm temperatures, a cool down, and then the latest look here on winter. And really, why we believe it's possibly a winter where it features a lot more snow than what we've seen here over the last decade. Or so, maybe. All right, let's get into it. We'll talk about it. If you like the video, share it with a friend, and let's go right into it. We're going to rapidly expanding drought, like I said, very warm this weekend, big rain chance next week, possibly, I think, for a lot of folks that need rain. And then we'll talk about a Gulf of Mexico hurricane threat, which you can see here on the featured image. There is at least the potential for some development coming in the next week or so. A bigger cold front late this month, and then ENSO really is a big wild card, but we're going to talk about what we're seeing, at least today. The last time I did the video, last time we talked about this on Wednesday, we talked about an accelerated harvest being likely. This is the graphic that we used. We've seen it. I mean, crop is coming out rather quickly across central Indiana, at least where I live. I know it's coming out of the ground. It's early September. A lot of people are harvesting right now. It's really, really dry, and it's really warm. And that's really accelerating this for the most part. The U.S. Drought Monitor class change over the last 4 weeks. You can see rapid expansion of the drought from the Ohio River Valley, Tennessee, down to the deep south. 2 to 3 class degradation, if you will, of this drought here. So it's just stopped raining. For the most part. Now, interestingly enough, in our original summer forecast package, we were concerned about a very hot and dry end to the summer. It's happened to roll now into early September. It's just a little late here, but it's certainly here. And nonetheless, it's impressive. You look here at the current U.S. Drought Monitor. Southern Ohio, West Virginia is historically the driest it's really ever been. You've really actually never been this dry. Even versus 2012, you weren't this dry at this time of year. It is very, very, very dry. Exceptional drought conditions there across south central Ohio. Folks really, really need the rain. Incredibly dry, though, still across Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, over towards Oklahoma and Kansas as well, as the drought has expanded rapidly there. But really, it just hasn't rained anywhere. I mean, you look at the available soil moisture content in the soils right now across the country, and there isn't any. I mean, for the most part, I mean it is just bone dry anywhere you see this color here across the country. It just has not rained for quite a while. So make no mistake, historically it's really, really dry. Take a look at high temperatures here. High temperatures today, upper 80s across the area, upper 90s, Kansas, North Texas. Tomorrow, the heat expands, low 90s across the Corn Belt, the Ohio River Valley, upper 80s, low 90s. 100-degree readings in Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas on Thursday. Friday, it's even hotter. Okay, low to mid-90s, heat indices in the low 100s. Actual air temperatures, 100 plus across Oklahoma, Texas. All of Texas, just really, really warm. Saturday as well. I mean, look, it just continues. If you haven't harvested yet, the odds are by this weekend, you're going to certainly be doing it. Because as dry as it is and has been, now we're going to work in a rain chance next week. If I were you, I'd want to get out ahead of that rain. I wouldn't want to deal with it with the crop being ready to be pulled out of the ground, probably, at least very close. The rain, is going to matter. Temperatures are just really, really warm the next 5 days. Cooler in the west and southwest. But the first legitimate shot of rain is going to come early next week, potentially. All right. And we've got some data. This is our AI data from the European model. It's a little bit more west to east. Okay. Whereas when we look currently at the blend of weather models, it's a little bit more southwest to northeast, meaning that this here would basically avoid the Ohio Valley if this particular set of data is correct. It's very, very wet, no doubt, for North Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, southern Minnesota, but it misses this area. And so that has to be taken into consideration. We obviously cannot ignore that. but something to consider here. The AI data, which I kind of have liked this year, is a little bit more west to east in its flow and offers up rain chances for Ohio early next week. Listen, I'm kind of rooting for it, to be quite honest with you, as these folks really need it. Next week, as the tropical threat develops in the south, a trough swings through at the right time, probably, and steers moisture up into the east, possibly, again, the Ohio, West Virginia area. Dries it back out, though, across the central plains. The rain early next week is not going to last. The pattern's not going to turn wet, if you will, at least as for the time being. But the cool down comes at a time where in the 6 to 10 day period, there may be some Gulf of Mexico hurricane potential or tropical storm potential. This is the European ensemble. Not quite as excited as the American ensemble, as seen here. Nonetheless, there's a signal there we need to watch. And plenty of low pressure tracks here with this storm early next week as well from the American model that indicates the potential for rain. So we need to watch it. There's the trough I was telling you about, the AI European picking up on the trough coming through, bringing cooler temperatures in. I think to end the month and open October, I think it's cool. I think we cool it down. A positive P&A develops, which is a ridge in the Pacific Northwest. Data really hinting on late September, early October being cooler in the east. And I wouldn't say it's cold, but I would say it's colder than average. It might be a big cold front come in. So we'll keep an eye on that. Remember, average first frost date for much of the Ohio Valley is probably the 15th of October or so, give or take a few days. So we'll be watching that. We'll see how strong this front can be later into the month. The CFS, the American weeklies, try to hang on to this positive P&A Pacific Northwest ridge pattern out through the first 2 weeks of October. And you can see the cooler temperature readings that it provides here into the east. With that idea, there's your ridge. That's your P&A right there. And it puts a trough in the east. The only problem with this type of weather pattern in this time of year is it's dry. But here's what I would look for to happen. I don't necessarily completely disagree with this, but what I think is going to happen is that the warmer conditions will actually come back east by the end of the month. I think the end of October is a lot warmer than the start of October. It's certainly probably closer to Halloween. It's probably going to be pretty warm in the eastern part of the country. I don't think we're looking at a monster 20-degree trick-or-treating this year with snow like we've seen in the past couple of years. So I'm not mad about that. It's into November further, where I'll discuss in a moment, where the trough may come back into the east and we start to see more North Pacific ridging developing as a sign of perhaps what's to come for winter. And again, we'll talk about that here in just a moment. This is the latest CFS monthly projections for October. Again, you can kind of see that it might keep it seasonal to the southeast because of the cool start. Overall, it's a warmer than normal month. But look how dry the October forecast is. I'm in the air on this, and I'll tell you why in just a moment, okay? I'm in the air on it. I do think the pattern starts to get wetter as the La Nina tries to develop and a ridge can establish in the North Pacific, but we'll analyze that here in just a second. This is the latest subsurface. This is not the latest. This was from 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to show you this. But this is 2 weeks ago subsurface temperature departures here, or anomalies from normal in the equatorial Pacific Ocean. So this is where we're kind of looking at the ocean temperatures beneath the surface. And again, you can see, you can kind of see it, but you also can kind of see the warmth there. Look at the latest right there. All right, you see that's a pretty big difference. That's a pretty big change. Quite the change there in the subsurface temperatures for the potential emerging La Nina. Now, the 4-week change in the last month is certainly one that will raise question. Okay, because you're just seeing a lot of back and forth action here in the ENSO regions. You're seeing more cooling east than you are west, and you're seeing a warm burst here in the central portion of the right in ENSO 3.4. But what this tells us is there's just a lot of back and forth right now with ENSO still, but the subsurfaces with the easterly wind burst coming in the extended forecast, I think might the cooler waters may emerge in the central and eastern basin here, Pacific Basin, as La Nina may get a little bit of a kickstart, perhaps. All right, we'll see. We'll see. This is the top 5 September analogs right now based on the sea surface temperature pattern versus the current sea surface temperature pattern on the bottom. Pretty similar, right? No question. Pretty similar overall in the North Pacific, the Central Pacific, and the Central and Northern Atlantic. There's really not a whole lot of differences. Even the Indian Ocean, it's a pretty good match here from an analog package. So I like that, and I can analog that out through October and November. And the reason I was telling you a moment ago that I wasn't quite sure about a dry October is these years really favor some activity, okay? And even severe weather as well. I wouldn't be shocked for a few severe weather episodes in October, if I'm being honest, a stronger front or two. It overall probably ends above normal with temperatures, but there will be fronts in there. It starts cool, ends warm. So, again, it's overall the East, I would just say it ends above normal, but I do think that potentially the pattern, we may start seeing more rain chances into October, if you ask me personally. So we'll see. November, we'll start to see some of the early surfaces of the winter pattern drivers, perhaps, which is more Pacific ridging potential, which would drive warmth in the western U.S. and open up for a trough in the east. All right. And this down here, or over to the right, is November precipitation, which would indicate a drift towards a La Nina look. But the reason for this would be the ridge pattern that would possibly set up and open up the door for precipitation here into November. Okay, so what is our sea surface temperature analogs tell us for the upcoming winter? This is the overall top sea surface temperature analog package right now, and again, what I want you to kind of see here is the trough that might be in the Great Lakes for much of the winter, and potentially the southeastern ridging, or the potential for, what you have this area of high pressure or warmer temperatures down here, and when fronts come in, areas of low pressure track through, they get moisture, you get a gradient, and if cold air is available, you're going to get more snow in here this winter. There's probably going to be a lot more snow in here than what we've seen in winters past, for sure. So it's just something to keep in mind. Now, a couple of those years for analog packages, with 2011 and 2012 is an analog, but so is 13, 14. Now, I want to tell you something about 13 and 14 versus 11 and 12. I will tell you that in terms of using those for comparisons, there's research that shows the plus QBO and the high solar can actually increase disruptions of the vortex, which may be something we might look at this year that we didn't look at in 11 and 12. And the other thing too is with those is that the QBO and the Central Pacific Nina versus these 2 years are just very different. 11 and 12 was a really a central-based Nina, if you will, as to where 13 and 14 was not. So that's kind of the wild card that we need to watch. But you can see what happens to snow if that does happen, because it is a consideration, but heavily favoring a lot of similarities in 13 and 14 right now that looked like this, okay? And so that was just an excessive amount of snow for a lot of people versus the normal. So something to consider there. The overall pattern, I think the drivers for the winter are certainly going to be this trough ridge pattern, okay? And that's this feature that you see here. This is the EPO for the most part, EPO, WPO. There should be some North Pacific ridging this winter, or at least more of it than usual. All right, which will displace cooler air, toss a trough in the east. You've got this Bermuda high, this warmer Atlantic water, and what you're doing is in the midst of all this, you are creating a battle zone setup for really a lot of snow in here. Okay, is it going to be a bone-chilling cold winter? I don't think so as of right now, but could there be more winter weather than usual? That would be the idea, at least for the time being, based on what we're seeing right now. So that's all I've got for today, guys. If you enjoyed the video, share it with a friend. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll be back next Wednesday for the latest. Take care.